What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of my podcast, Happy Days, with me, Callum Church. Now, today I want to talk about responsibility because it is time for us, for you, to start taking responsibility for where you are in your life right now, okay? Because whatever situation you're in right now, let me tell you, that is your fault, whether it be good, whether it would be bad. You have to take responsibility for that, because ultimately, who's going to be able to change that situation? Who's going to help you get to the point that you want to get to in your life other than yourself? Because no one is going to come and save you. No one is coming to pull you out of that situation. Only you can put in the work. Only you can change that. And only you can and should take the responsibility for that. So it doesn't matter what situation you're in. You have to take that responsibility. Now, here's a controversial one. If you are fat, if you are overweight, that is your responsibility to get out of. It is your fault that you are fat. No one else's fault. Purely and only your fault. It's a controversial one, I know. And I might get some hate for that, for saying that. But, I mean, whose fault is it? You know, and I'm not talking about stuff like eating disorders and that kind of thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about people that are simply just overweight. You know, that is their fault. That could be your fault if you're in that position. And only you can take responsibility to get out of that. Only you can go carry yourself down to the gym and work up a sweat and get that weight off. You know, only you can get your running trainers on and go out there and get running. Only you can get on the bike and start pedaling. You know, so you've got to take responsibility for that. Maybe you've got to take responsibility in the kitchen for that. You know, maybe you're not eating healthy enough. Maybe you're not eating the right stuff. Maybe you're not providing your body with the right fuel to be able to live in a way in which is healthy. You've got to take responsibility for that, you know? Likewise, if you are broke, you've got to take responsibility for that. No one else is going to be earning the money for you. Only you can earn the money, right? So if you are broke, if you're in a poor financial situation, you've got to take responsibility for that. You've got to start looking at ways in which maybe you can start bringing in more yourself. Maybe you need to open up your mind to new opportunities and possibilities of ways of making money. Because there's so many ways of making money. There honestly is. If you put your time and your mind to it, you can make a hell of a lot of money. I can make a hell of a lot of money if I wanted to. I know that for a fact. Other things come in the way, like my freedom. I value my freedom more, so I try not to work too much, you know. But if you're in a poor financial situation, then only you can take responsibility for that. Here's another controversial one. If you have poor mental health, you've got to take responsibility for that. And again, I'm not talking about the clinical stuff where it might be clinical depression or something like that, a chemical imbalance in your brain. I'm talking about just mental health, just the more typical talk about mental health, just just how you're doing, how you are feeling at that point in time. Because a few years ago when I was struggling with my mental health, it wasn't until I started taking responsibility for that in which I got better, you know. And it's so easy to sit there and make yourself out to be the victim in that kind of position, you know, make yourself out to but start believing that the world's against you or something like that. Even I did that myself. And that did not serve me for a second. That is why I'm doing this episode right now, is because I know from my own experience that you have to take responsibility for your situation. Otherwise, it will never, ever, ever get any better. You know, if you're constantly sitting there and waiting for outside factors to come and save you, you're going to be waiting a long time. You're going to be waiting forever, you know? So you have to take responsibility for that. So if your mental health is not in check right now, you have to take responsibility for that. You have to start looking after yourself. What kind of lifestyle are you living right now? Because your mental health reflects the lifestyle that you're living. If you're living a poor lifestyle, an unhealthy lifestyle, it is quite likely that your mental health is going to suffer as a result of that. So are you not strengthening up your mindset? Are you eating poorly? Are you not getting outside in nature? Are you constantly overstimulated by an array of factors? Are you, just not focusing on your health? Maybe you're not exercising enough. Maybe you need to work on your self-esteem and stuff like that, and really start working on confidence and getting yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit to build that up, Got to think about these things, and you've got to take responsibility for it, because it's not going to get any better otherwise. What if you can't maintain friendships? What if friends tend to come and go? You know, I'm not talking about just struggling to make friends in general. Yes, we got to take responsibility for that. If you can't make friends very well, you know, maybe you need to work on yourself somewhere. But if friends are constantly coming and going, what's that say about you? You know, if you can make friends, but equally just as easily you can lose friends, that's got to be saying something about you. That's got to be saying something about your social life. That's got to be saying something about your character. And you know, it's easy for you to sit there and say, oh, this person's a knobhead, oh, this person's a dickhead, you know, whatever. And sure, some of them might be knobheads and dickheads, but if people are constantly coming and going on in a consistent way, you've got to take responsibility for that. You know, if you cannot find suitable friends for yourselves, if you can't find people that are good for you and provide in your life and give you value, and likewise you give value to them, that's what friendship's all about, you know, then you've got to take responsibility for that. And you've got to look at that and think, what's going wrong here? How can I take responsibility for this and make it better? You know, career. Let's say you're working a really shitty job that you really fucking hate. You've got to take responsibility for that, because only you can hand in your notice. Only you can look at new career opportunities. Only you can try and create new career opportunities, you know. I mean, the opportunities are endless if you look at it from a certain perspective. So, are you going to take responsibility for where you are in your career right now? Or are you going to sit there and be a victim the whole time? You know, it's quite easy to sit there and blame the government or blame COVID or whatever because there's not enough jobs. And yes, that is a factor that's going to affect things, sure. But that does not mean that you can't take responsibility for it anymore. That doesn't mean that you can't sit there and boss it. Because trust me, if you are looking for a job, it's going to be the types of people that take responsibility for themselves that get these jobs. It's not going to be the people that sit there and claim they're a victim the whole time. You know, that's not the type of people and the type of characters which people hiring are looking for. You know, they are looking for headstrong people that are willing to take responsibility. Because if you take responsibility for stuff like this, chances are, you know, there's other elements of your character which are going to be desirable. You know, you're going to be a better person if you're taking responsibility, you know, because you're in the right mindset, you know. So, you've got to take responsibility for that. If your career's not in the right place, you've got to take responsibility. You know? And sure, we all have unfortunate things happen to us. They're kind of inevitable in life, you know? But that doesn't mean that you can't take responsibility, you know? Because like I say, everyone experiences these unfortunate events. Everyone experiences COVID or a shitty government or whatever factors you're going to put the blame to, you know? But not everyone sits there and stays a victim. It's the people that are succeeding who are taking responsibility. So if you want to be a part of that group, if you want to succeed and stop being a victim your whole life, you have to take responsibility. Honestly, I know I keep saying the word responsibility, but responsibility is one of the key factors which determine where you will get to in your life, your happiness, your bank account, your success in friendships, you know, your mental health, your physical health. If you take responsibility, then you will develop as a person. Responsibility is the foundation of all self-development. It's once you switch on to the fact that only you can change this shit, that it ever gets better. Like I said about my own personal mental health story I spoke about earlier, only when I took responsibility did it get better. That is the foundation of all growth. So if you want to get anywhere, if you want to become better, if you want your life to level up, you have to take responsibility for it. And I'm not talking responsibility for just you. I'm talking responsibility for everything. You know, if the bus was late and you get to work late, that's still your responsibility. I know it wasn't, you know, your fault necessarily from a certain perspective, but you still have to take responsibility for that. You know, maybe you have to factor out the bus, you know, and stop taking the bus and maybe look at other more, what's the word? Sort of better forms of transport, you know, to get there on time every single day. You know, if you are, what's another factor which might affect us? You know, if you're just simply given a bad hand in life, you know, it happens. You know, certain people might be born in more wealthy areas, certain people might not be. For example, I got quite lucky with my upbringing. I'm very lucky for that. But there's certain people that will find themselves in a difficult situation and instantly they become a victim. If they don't succeed in life, it's because, I was born in this rough end of the country. It's not my fault. I can't do anything about it. I'm just a victim here. And then there's certain people that grow up in the same area saying, yeah, sure, I was born in this area, which might be more unfavourable compared to other areas in the world. But that doesn't matter. I'm not going to let it stop me from achieving. I'm not going to let it stop me from being happy. I'm not going to let it stop me from living my dream life, And there's tons of stories about people that have overcome adversity, taken responsibility for that adversity, and ultimately gone on to succeed from that, And look, whether you're well off or not, it's ultimately the responsibility that determines these factors, whether you're going to succeed or not. Let's look at it from the other point of view. If you come from a privileged upbringing, like me, I'm quite privileged. I'm middle class and white. I'm a male. I get pretty privileged here, I mean, it's easy for me to sit there and say, the family always take care of the money, I can just chill, I can just do nothing, I don't have to grind and work on myself and develop myself and build the kind of life I want, because, I'm pretty comfortable, and if I continued with that mindset, then where would I be going? I wouldn't really get very far, because ultimately, even though you're not a victim per se, you're adopting that victim mindset in which you allow the outer factors to affect you. You let the outer factors dictate what your life's going to be. You might have had good outside factors at first with a privileged upbringing, but that doesn't mean that you're still going to maintain those privileged factors later on in life. That doesn't mean that, as you get older and more factors come into your life, that doesn't mean that they're not going to affect you anymore, because they will at some point. This bad shit that happens in people's lives is inevitable for everyone, so we have to prepare ourselves for that by, yes, working on our mindset, yes, trying to get us in a secure sort of foundation for life, but also taking the responsibility for that. Before it comes. You've got to take responsibility for it before it comes, So, are you going to be a victim or are you going to be a victor? It's up to you. That's the choice right now. If you've got a privileged upbringing, are you going to sit there and be a victim and let other things, happen to you? Or are you going to say, no, I've had this privileged upbringing, sure, I'm going to fucking do something with it, Because that's partly what drives me to go after this stuff. I know how privileged I am. I appreciate that, and I'm so grateful for that. And I don't want to waste it. I can't waste it. What kind of person would I be if I just sit there and allow myself to be a victim after the amazing head start I've got in life? It's not fair. It's not fair on the people that have provided that for me, and it's not fair on the people that don't have that privilege. You've got to put it to work. So that's why I'm driven. Is because I just have this incredible sense of responsibility that, I've been given this privilege. I've got to do something with it, So I'm taking responsibility for everything in my life, and that's partly the reason why my life has changed so much in just a year. Just since I started this podcast, my life has changed for the better. I've become so much more happier. I'm starting to work on my physique as well. My physical health, my mental health has never been better. I'm starting to grow my financials as well. My social life is thriving. Life's good, but it's only when you take responsibility that you can allow yourself to have that and enjoy that. So do the hard thing now of taking responsibility and enjoy the nice stuff later when it comes, There's so, like I was saying earlier, there's so many stories of people who have succeeded in life that didn't used to have that. They didn't used to have that success, and they only achieved that success once they took responsibility. That's the foundation of everything, like I was saying earlier, So Einstein, I've got some case studies here. Einstein, right? Teachers thought he was lazy and distracted all the time, right? But he took responsibility for himself, and now he's become one of the most influential figures in science and physics. It took him up until 4 years old to actually be able to speak English, you know? So he took responsibility for himself and started putting the work in and put what might be seen, like from the teacher's perspective, as undesirable characteristics about him. He was a daydreamer. He was distracted. But he used that daydreaming, that distraction, that creativity and imagination to be able to come up with a theory of relativity, and now he's hailed as one of the greatest figures in science and physics, because he took that responsibility. Van Gogh, right, only sold one painting throughout his whole life. Can you believe that? I was blown away when I was reading that earlier today. I was looking at some of these case studies of people. He sold one painting his entire life. He's one of the most famous painters in history, and he only sold one painting. And yet he never gave up. He always took that responsibility. He knew his entire life that he only sold one painting, or perhaps a long time of his life he never sold a painting, But he took responsibility for that, and he kept going. He kept going and kept going and kept going, and now he's one of the most successful painters in the world, in history, ever, period. Full stop. He took responsibility for that, and he's ultimately succeeded. Jim Carrey, right, dropped out of school at 15 to support his family. Then he went homeless, living in a van with his family, yet he still pursued his dreams of becoming a successful comedian. It would have been so easy for Jim Carrey to sit there and play the victim card, to sit there and look down at himself and feel like a victim. Oh, woe is me, I'm homeless. I've come from a unfortunate upbringing, with his family and stuff, having to drop out of school at 15, and yet he still took responsibility for himself and pursued his dreams. He still took responsibility of becoming a comedian, and he smashed it now. Multi-millionaire, It's the power of responsibility, man. It's the foundation of everything. He had nothing. He was homeless, from unfortunate upbringings, and yet he built that foundation of responsibility upon which his whole career, his whole success, his whole legacy is built upon, Thomas Edison, everyone knows this one, but I'm going to say it anyway, failed between 1,000 to 10,000 times. It's a bit, no one quite knows that figure. I don't know why it's so vast, but up to 10,000 times this man failed. Can you imagine failing 10,000 times? And yet he took responsibility for all that. He took responsibility for himself, and he never gave up. He never gave up. Up to 10,000 times, even up to 1,000 times. That's the minimum, right? Minimum 1,000 times this guy failed. Can you imagine failing 1,000 times? How disheartening that would be. And yet he took responsibility for where he was in his life. He took responsibility for the fact that he didn't have the success that he craved so much at that point in his life. And he never gave up. And eventually he invented the light bulb. Rest is history, He's now one of the most successful inventors, entrepreneurs in history. All built upon the foundation of responsibility. So whatever situation you're in right now, you have two choices, okay? You can remain a victim, or you can start taking responsibility for where you are in life. So what are you going to choose? You have a choice at the end of this podcast right now to decide what choice you're going to make. Are you going to be a victim? Are you going to remain a victim and let outside factors dictate your life? Or are you going to take responsibility? And are you going to dictate your life? Are you going to build the dream life that you want? Because you can do it. You just have to lay down that foundation first. These things might not be building so easily, but it might be because you don't have that foundation. You don't have the foundation of responsibility. You can't build a house upon no foundations, right? So you've got to lay down that responsibility first before you build this thing. Before you build these things. Before you build this life, So, make the choice. Choice is yours. And with that, that is the end of today's episode. I do truly hope you did enjoy it as always. If you did, please consider leaving me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts because it does truly help the show. Also follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @callum.g.church, and follow me on TikTok. My TikTok handle is @callumchurch5. With that, that's the end of the episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. So there you go. That's the end of the show. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe on your podcasting app of choice so you can download and listen as each episode is released. If this episode helped you in any way, tell your friends, tell your family, maybe even leave a cheeky review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show. But that's all for now. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode, released shortly. Take care.